Good afternoon, Frank.
Good afternoon, Professor Spooner.
This has been what shall I say, a difficult week. And I find people asking more and more, is this the new normal?
Mm-hmm.
Is it just going to get worse from now on? Is it related to globalization, what we've seen, what happened in Berlin on Monday? Is there anything we can do to stop it? And then I don't know whether you've heard on the BBC that there's been a lot of time devoted to it, especially discussion of security regulations in different European countries and the differences between Germany and France and England and America,
mm-hmm.
Which were very interesting. And in fact, I wish I could have recorded them to listen to them and study them carefully, rather than just listening to them in the traffic and as I drive. But what was interesting about them was that, or at least one of the things that was interesting, was that the people being interviewed, some of whom had a lot of experience in Germany, said that the regulations in Germany are much more protective of, now what was the word they used, of civil rights anyway. So surveillance is much more difficult in Germany, simply because of their reaction against their earlier history of the past century, not only of the Nazi period but also the communist period.
Mm-hmm.
So they have been trying to compensate for that and make sure that nothing like that happens again, and that is making it much easier or much more difficult for the security people to monitor anybody that they suspect, compared to what it might be in other countries. Even though people here say a lot about the problems of the communication between the different, what are now the different branches of the Homeland Security, what's it called, Department of Homeland Security?
Yes.
They seem to be doing much better than happens in Germany for this reason.
Well,
so that's one thing.
That's interesting, because if you look at Germany, for example, has had guest workers there forever. I mean, certainly for the past 40 years. The Turks have a very big community in Germany. The French, of course, have a very big Algerian and Northern African community. The British, of course, have a very big Pakistani and Indian community. So these are communities. These are communities that have been in these democracies since the beginning of certainly well before this terrorist uprising has begun. So there's an awful lot of what would I say? The societies know how to live with each other for the most part. And I think many of the protections you're talking about have been put in place because of the importance of those societies over the years, in order to make sure that they're not alienated. But this is a different era now. It's a different challenge.
Yes, I think that the world we live in is, and when I say the world we live in, I mean in social terms, the way we interact with people, what we do from day to day, is very different now from what it was immediately after the Second World War, when this type of immigration began, both into England, into France, and into Germany.
Right.
So I think that was at its height in the 60s and started in the 50s.
Well, let me ask you a question. I mean, realistically, there is no way that I can see that this kind of lone wolf terror attack is ever going to be prevented in the future. And then the second observation I have, and then I'll keep quiet, is that 12 people were killed. It's a terrible tragedy. I grant you that. But in the United States since Monday, I would bet that 5 times that many people have been killed in gun incidents of Americans against Americans. So is this a price that society pays and bears for its openness? I don't know. That's an equation beyond me.
Well, and also, of course, 9/11 was unique to America.
Correct.
And there's never been anything else as bad as that. No, I think that all these things have to be seen in not only in their historical context but in their social context, and we have to take account of the way this everyday social life is changing, and that what Osama bin Laden was doing, and the people in Al Qaeda after him, and then the people in the Islamic State and other organizations since then has been changing because their awareness of where they stand in relation to everything else has been changing. I think that in the 50s and 60s, before this sort of thing began, people were not thinking of themselves in a global context. They were thinking of themselves as they were coming from a particular country and they're living in a new country, and they didn't like a lot of things, and they tried to reconstruct their own society in order to be comfortable. And that sort of thing still happens. However, when they do it now, they have a much greater awareness of other possibilities.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me ask you about one of those other possibilities. In the possible event that there is some ISIS high command that at least acquiesce to this fellow's action on Monday in Berlin, surely, if I know this, they must know this, surely the understanding must have been known as to what the possible effects this would have upon the German federal elections next year. Surely they would know that it would increase a backlash against Merkel for her inclusionary kind of policies. I mean, and we've sort of talked about this. Is this what they want? Do they want a hard right-wing Trump kind of person at the helm in Berlin, keeping out immigrants?
No, I don't think they think in those terms. I think they think in I think that they think that Germany is Germany, whoever wins the election, in the same way that most people in the world think that America is America, whoever wins the election. And yes, Trump's a different person to deal with from Obama, but America's the same. I mean, it's amazing. I used to have think about this a lot when I was working in that part of the world several decades ago, because England had a particular image in people's minds, which had nothing to do with the way England was, but the England that I knew. It was the England that had that they knew from the British Raj. Mm. And the idea that it might be different in the 1970s or 80s was not something that they were aware of. And I think that the same thing is happening now in relation to people from that part of the world who are migrating into Europe. They develop particular ideas about the country that they live in, and it has to do with the general attitudes of the public. Well, and what is done in everyday life.
Well, I fear that what's going to happen is almost going to be diabolical. I mean, there's going to be a governmental backlash that's going to be probably more extreme than it should be, that will only work to serve to increase the propaganda value of the Western democracies, of the ISIS high command against the Western democracies, saying now they're doing this, now they're doing that. And
it would not be surprising if there were a general uprising in one or more European countries against any sort of immigration from that part of the world. But there's no sign of it happening.
Not yet.
No,
Not yet.
But it's really quite surprising that there has been no sign of it happening yet. Mm-hmm. So that suggests to me that if some sort of reaction of that type does begin, it's not going to happen quickly. And our biggest problems in doing anything are in changing our institutions, because it's very difficult to change them, even though the way we use them is changing all the time. So I think that gradually of course, I should preface what I say by admitting that I'm an optimist, uh, and also I find myself from day to day mostly talking to pessimists. So
Yes, I'm sure.
that's
Yeah,
part of the way I form my ideas. That what these people are reacting against now is changing, and for that reason, and everything changes all the time anyway. So that what is leading them to react in this way at the moment and throw away their own lives because of this general reaction against the world that they feel they can't get out of, that's not going to be the same in well, because we don't know how long, but I would say 20 years' time.
What did you think of the shooting of the Russian ambassador in Ankara?
Well, that was quite amazing, and so far I think we still don't know enough about that, because I mean, was it an off-duty policeman?
Yes, apparently so. He was an off-duty riot policeman. And then what I found most amazing are the statements from both Erdogan and Putin saying that this incident is not going to affect the rapprochement between the two countries.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think that you know, they have a common border, and the relationship is very important to them. Even though they were fighting on different sides in, well, I suppose weren't really on different sides, but they were fighting for different reasons in Syria.
I'll tell you what, if I'm President Obama, I'm counting the minutes until I check out.
Say that again?
If I'm President Obama, I'm counting the minutes until I check out. What a giant headache. Just leave it to someone else.
Yes, but I think his ideas about how to handle it are the best. And even though he's not been maintaining them all the time, simply because he's got so much opposition.
Right, right.
But I mean, I think that the idea that you can get rid of something if you don't like it it doesn't work.
It's ridiculous. And I thought the comments he made at his press conference about justifying why the United States did not get more involved in Syria were right on point.
Yeah.
He really laid it out, saying, listen, we had two choices, boots on the ground or not boots on the ground. I made the decision that the country did not want boots on the ground. And let's face it, they don't. So,
but he did get involved with drones and in Syria and in Yemen.
Correct.
And I find it difficult to agree with the reasons he must have had for doing that, even though most people in America probably would agree with him. Simply because I think that the people on the ground have to sort things out for themselves. And what we have to do is to make sure that any ideas they may have about taking it out on us, we should be able to protect ourselves against. I think we don't do enough for our own defense. What we do is to hit the people that we think might hit us.
Yep, yep.
And that just creates more people who'd like to hit us.
It's a terrible tautology. It just keeps going on and on and on. Well, on that note, before Christmas, we'll wish each other a very happy holiday, and hopefully 2016 will elapse without any other incidents.
And the same to our viewers.
Indeed, indeed. All right, Brian, thank you very much for your time.
Okay, bye.
Bye.